The wind howled through the deserted highway, rattling the rusted road signs that lined the cracked asphalt. The sky, an endless abyss of darkness, stretched above Samuel Carter as he drove, his hands gripping the wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. His headlights barely pierced the dense fog rolling across the pavement, creating ghostly tendrils that slithered through the air like living creatures. He had been driving for hours. Too many hours. The hum of the car's engine had become a lullaby, luring his exhausted mind into dangerous complacency. His eyelids drooped, heavy with fatigue, and his vision blurred with each passing mile. The road ahead was nothing but an unbroken stretch of black, the trees on either side standing like skeletal sentinels in the night. Then a sign. Faded, cracked, barely visible in the glow of his high beams. Blackwood, 5 miles. Samuel exhaled, a wave of relief washing over him. He wasn't even sure why he had taken this route, an unfamiliar back road winding through the Appalachian wilderness, but it had seemed like a shortcut at the time. Now, with his gas tank dipping dangerously close to empty, he needed to find a place to rest before exhaustion consumed him. As he followed the winding road, the fog thickened, swallowing the landscape in a suffocating embrace. The trees grew denser, their gnarled branches arching over the road like skeletal fingers reaching for him. His heart pounded as an eerie sensation crept over him, a feeling of being watched, of unseen eyes peering through the darkness. A flickering neon light appeared in the distance, barely visible through the mist. The words glowed in pale red, buzzing faintly. The Blackwood Inn. It looked ancient. The 2-story building loomed in the darkness, its wooden exterior weathered and worn, the paint peeling in long, curling strips. A single gas pump stood near the entrance, rusted and abandoned. There were no other cars in the lot, only his. Samuel hesitated. Something about the place felt wrong. The air was too still, the silence too absolute. But exhaustion weighed him down like chains, and the promise of sleep was too tempting to ignore. He pulled into the lot and stepped out of the car. The moment his boots touched the ground, a chill crawled up his spine. The inn's entrance was a heavy wooden door with an old-fashioned brass handle. He pushed it open, and the scent of aged wood, dust, and something metallic filled his nostrils. Inside, the lobby was dimly lit by a single chandelier, its bulbs flickering erratically. The walls were adorned with old, faded portraits of people whose eyes seemed to follow him. A large, antique grandfather clock stood in the corner, its pendulum swinging with an ominous rhythm. At the front desk sat a man. He was ancient, his face lined with deep wrinkles, his thin frame draped in a moth-eaten sweater. His eyes, milky and unfocused, seemed to stare through Samuel rather than at him. "Room," the old man rasped, his voice like rusted hinges. Samuel nodded. "Yeah, just for the night." The old man slid a key across the counter. "Room 6. No check-in process. No paperwork. Just the key." Samuel took it hesitantly, then turned toward the hallway that led to the rooms. The corridor was long and narrow, lined with doors that looked far older than the building itself. The wooden floor creaked under his weight, and the dim wall sconces cast long, wavering shadows that danced like specters along the walls. Room 6 was near the end of the hall. The number was barely visible, the brass digits tarnished and worn. He inserted the key and turned the knob. The room was small, almost suffocating. A single bed with an iron frame sat against the wall, its mattress thin and lumpy. A wooden dresser stood opposite the bed, and beside it, an old mirror, its glass warped with age. The window overlooked nothing but darkness. No stars, no moon, just an endless void. A shiver ran through him. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that the walls were pressing in, that the silence was too deep. As he sat on the bed, the floor creaked outside his door. He stiffened. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Then a knock. Soft, almost hesitant. Samuel's breath hitched. He turned toward the door, his pulse pounding. "Hello," he called. Silence. Another knock. Louder this time. He stood, his hands clenching into fists. Something about this felt wrong. He moved slowly toward the door, pressing his ear against the wood. Nothing, then the knob twisted. His heart slammed against his ribs as he stumbled back. The door didn't open, but he could hear breathing on the other side. Heavy, labored, as if someone or something was standing there, waiting. And then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The hallway fell silent once more. Samuel's hands trembled as he locked the door. His instinct screamed at him to leave, to get back in his car and drive as far from this place as possible. But his body was heavy with exhaustion, his mind fogged with fatigue. He climbed into bed, pulling the thin blanket over himself. Sleep came in uneasy waves, his mind slipping between wakefulness and restless dreams. The air felt heavier, thick with something unseen. Then, in the dead of night, he woke with a start. The mirror across from him was fogged over, as if someone had been standing in front of it, breathing. And in the dim reflection, there was a figure, standing in the corner of his room, watching. And then the whispers began. Soft at first, barely perceptible. Words in a language he did not understand, seeping from the walls, from the cracks in the ceiling, from the floorboards beneath his bed. He squeezed his eyes shut, pressing his hands against his ears. The air was charged, electric like the moment before a lightning strike. The temperature dropped sharply. His breath misted in front of him, and the scent of damp earth and something sickly sweet filled his nostrils. The whispers grew louder, insistent, circling around him like a predator stalking its prey. Then the bed shook. A violent tremor that rattled the frame, sending him sprawling to the floor. His pulse was a drumbeat in his ears. The whispers became a deafening chorus, a cacophony of voices screaming in unison. And then silence. Samuel gasped for air, his body drenched in cold sweat. He scrambled to his feet, his eyes darting around the room. The mirror was clear now, his reflection staring back at him. Alone. But something had changed. The door to his room was wide open. And in the hallway, the darkness moved. As he stepped forward, shadows stretched unnaturally along the walls, forming grotesque figures with elongated limbs and hollow eyes. The floor beneath him creaked as if breathing. A guttural voice echoed from the depths of the hallway, whispering his name, beckoning him forward. Samuel clenched his fists, his breath shallow. He had to get out. He had to escape before whatever lurked within Blackwood and consumed him. Next expansion, Samuel will uncover ancient symbols etched into the walls, find hidden doors leading to forgotten chambers, and face the true horror buried beneath the inn. As reality warps around him, he will come to understand that Blackwood Inn is not just haunted, it is alive. Subscribe and like please, 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 subscribe and like please.